I Dance with You with a Brush, Henri-Marie Raymond de Toulouse-Lautrec Monfa, 1864 to 1901, and Jane Avril, 1868 to 1943. The painter of the Montmartre cabaret Moulin Rouge, Henri-Marie Raymond de Toulouse-Lautrec Monfa, 1864 to 1901, was born in 1864, the eldest son of a distinguished count in Albi, southern France. His full name is Henri-Marie Raymond de Toulouse-Lautrec Monfa. The reason for its length is that the Lautrec family has an aristocratic lineage dating back to the 12th century. His family had a long tradition of intermarriage to preserve its lineage and fortunes. This inbreeding resulted in brittle bones and a genetic disorder that prevented height growth. Lautrec himself suffered from this growth disorder, and when he was 13, a fall from a chair caused his lower body to stop growing altogether, leaving him dependent on a cane. His condition, known as concentric osteopathy, would later become known as Lautrec syndrome. His parents were first cousins, and while his father, a man of prestige, was bitterly cold to his disabled son, seeing him as an embarrassment to the family, his mother was supportive, recognizing his talent for drawing, unable to enjoy riding and hunting, the typical pastimes of the aristocracy. His natural artistic talent led him to concentrate on drawing. He was particularly adept to portraiture, and from the age of 9 he observed the people around him, family, servants, hunting scenes, and drew them in a variety of materials, including pencil, chalk, paint, and ink. Unable to live the life of a normal aristocrat, or even a normal man, Lautrec settled in Montmartre, Paris, at the age of 19. He befriended Vincent van Gogh, took Edgar Degas as his spiritual guide, and immersed himself in the Moulin Rouge and brothels. It was not just because he was wholly absorbed by the pleasures of the nightlife. For a man who felt degraded, even in his own home because of his physical defects, the lower-class women he met at the Moulin Rouge, dancers, prostitutes, and laundresses, were companions with whom he could share a human connection, muses for his artistic inspiration, and affirmations of his wholeness. They were not hypocritical like their upper-class counterparts. Rather, they were honest, and they treated Lautrec as a person. Unfortunately, the little giant of Montmartre, Henri Toulouse-Lautrec, found both human connection and venereal disease. He contracted syphilis at the age of 22 and died on September 9, 1901, at the age of 36, after suffering from paranoia and hallucinations brought on by alcoholism and venereal disease. His father, who had shunned his handicapped son for most of his life, returned only shortly before his death. Lautrec left a will that called him an old fool for refusing to acknowledge his work until his death. Lautrec died 12 years before his father, so he never inherited the title of count, but that was not important for him. Lautrec had several muses, and the story of how the painter, Susan Valadon, proposed to him is well known. However, in his exhibition, Muses with Lenticular, we focus on Jane Avril, one of the best dancers at the Moulin Rouge. Jane Avril was the muse who gave Lautrec his reputation as the little giant of Montmartre. When the cabaret Moulin Rouge opened in 1889, Lautrec was commissioned to create a poster for the cabaret, and with no financial support from his parents, he accepted the offer to earn money. "I tried to do what was true, not what was idealized," he said, and it's safe to assume that depicting the Moulin Rouge, with its mix of people from all walks of life, regardless of status and wealth, was as much about his own artistic fulfillment as it was about the club. The Moulin Rouge was kind enough to give Lautrec a reserved seat at the very front of the club, which allowed him to frequent the performances every night and paint everything he saw without exaggeration or glorification. His fascination with ukiyo-e, Japanese folk art, led him to paint the Moulin Rouge posters in bold, clear colors and lines, with backgrounds omitted at will. While many posters had been created before for advertising purposes, Lautrec's are considered the first to be both artistic and commercial, and some say they were the first examples of the street posters we see today. His posters coincide. To-the-point messages are said to have influenced pop art and Andy Warhol. They elevated commercial art to the status of high art and turned cabaret performers into stars. Jane Avril was one of the people made famous by his posters. He and Jane Avril, 1868 to 1943, met at the Moulin Rouge. Her mother was a prostitute and her father an Italian aristocrat. Abused from an early age by her alcoholic mother, she ran away as a teenager, attempted suicide, and was frequently hospitalized for St. Vitus's dance, a neurological condition that caused uncontrollable limb tremors and facial spasms. She was forced into prostitution. She worked as an acrobat, as a cashier at the Paris Exposition, and taught herself to dance at night. She became famous as a can-can dancer, and in 1889 she was hired as a regular dancer at the Jardin de Paris, a lavish show at the Moulin Rouge. She was the star of the show, and men lined up every day to see her dance. By the time Lautrec created the poster for the Moulin Rouge, Jane Avril had been described as an orchid in a frenzy for her unique dancing, and she was on her way to becoming a star of the turn-of-the-century Parisian nightlife. Unlike the critical depictions of brothels and ladies of the night by painters of the time, Lautrec's portrayal of her and her life was more passionate and colorful. The crippled son of an aristocrat and the daughter of a prostitute with aristocratic blood quickly bonded over their physical maladies and their commonality as outcasts. Lautrec captured not only Avril's stage presence, but also her everyday life. There is always a beautiful side to ugliness everywhere. It's exciting to find it in places where no one notices. His works are full of dancing people. The subjects in Lautrec's paintings are all in lively action, and their main stage was the Moulin Rouge. It was through the Moulin Rouge that Lautrec became fascinated with the sordid underbelly of Paris and took an unbiased look at the lower classes, who in turn looked at him without prejudice, regardless of their status, class, or circumstances. Their clothes and movements caught his eye as they swayed freely to the sound of the music, their bodies taking on a new form at every turn in the glittering interior lights. He found Jane Avril dancing most freely in the darkest corners of Paris, and he captured that freedom in his paintings like he was dancing with it. The space for Lautrec and Avril is a recreation of the Moulin Rouge.